haven't. Have you watched The Polygamist?
I have not, but I've recently been introduced to the plot.
Okay, in terms of polygamy, because the show is called The Polygamist, has it not been a thing that's always been around?
Yes, mankind has always been prone to getting around polygamously. It's a part of the broken human condition, the fallen condition. The fact that it's been around for so long, contrary to popular belief, does not justify its existence or condone its actions. Yes, Moses did offer certificates of divorce, but it was not this way from the beginning. For a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And so what Jesus quotes in Matthew 19 is what Scripture states, and that's also the voice of Jesus in Genesis 2:24. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And that one flesh is physical, spiritual, emotional. It's everything. So it's been around for millennia, but it's never been condoned by God, and Jesus makes it very clear. It was not this way from the beginning. In other words, this is not part of the divine design.
The divine design, I love that. Yeah. People make examples of how Solomon had 700 wives and concubines.
The mystery for me about that, Sandy, how can the wisest man in the world end up with 1,000 wives? How? Somebody's got to explain this to me. We're told he's the wisest man that ever lived, and he ends up with 1,000 wives?
Yeah, but I don't know how you see 1,000 wives in a year. Like, there's only 365 days.
I don't know how he did it, and I'm not too sure I want to know how he did it. Just thinking about it makes me tired.
The wife, the main wife, because then somewhere in the storyline, another older wife showed up, but like, let's just talk about the main wife who was the public persona, and she was a brand ambassador, an influencer, but she was just like in the public eye, and it was very important to her for her marriage to be perceived in a certain way, and for her to be perceived as having this beautiful family and marriage and a husband that's faithful, to a point where it was actually harmful to her and her children and her family. When people just live for, I guess, the audience of many.
The audience of many instead of the audience of one, yes. The predominant sense I have that ministry is not a place to sort out your issues. It's not a place to affirm your inferiority complex or to be liked. Ministry is a calling that one receives from God, and it's not a popularity contest.
Yeah.
And it's not about being politically correct, because we live for an audience of one, and we answer to the righteous judge of all the earth. So, but I've seen so much of it, and it's nauseating. It's really nauseating. But it's a subtle trap, and I'm aware of the dangers and how subtle it is, because we like to believe what people say about us, as long as it's good stuff. We like to believe it. But I think what applies in many areas of life, and definitely in ministry, is don't believe all the good things people say about you, and don't believe all the bad things people say about you. It's not true. There's truth somewhere there in the middle.
Yeah.
But if you're ever really in doubt about how you're doing, talk to the one who called you. Talk to Jesus. Talk to the Lord. You don't need other people's, It's nice to be affirmed. It's nice to be thanked. It's nice to be acknowledged and recognized. Yes, those are wonderful things, and we should do those things. But if that's why we're doing our work, whether it's Christian ministry or anything else, if we're doing it for recognition, that's a very slippery slope, and it's a very fragile foundation.
Absolutely. In the event that you are in a situation where you are a public figure and something humiliating like that happens, or you're probably not even a public figure, you're just like a community person, or you're part of a community, or you're part of a church, what would you say is the most edifying to the gospel way
Yes, yeah. That's important.
of carrying out a situation like that?
I think first thing is to own it. Not to make excuses, not to look for justification. Just to fess up, to own it, admit it. I'm wrong. There's like no redeeming aspect to this other than what the Lord can bring out of it, but don't look for some silver lining or look for some, no. Just own it, it's broken, it's messy, it's a disaster. And then like David, Psalm 51 is a model prayer of confession. Against you and you only have I sinned. I mean, he'd murdered a man because he lusted after and coveted the man's wife, being Bathsheba, and the man being Uriah, one of his trusted officers in his military. So he had him murdered on the battlefield to try and make it look like it was just a tragic casualty of war. The child died, so the dear Bathsheba, poor woman, she had to grieve the loss of her husband and the loss of her child. And it took Jerusalem, it took Israel into a very bad place, morally, spiritually, everything. And David's owning all of that, but he makes this profound statement in Isaiah 51: against you and you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. And that is there's a lot there, but he's putting the responsibility where it should be on him, on his shoulders, and he's putting the accountability where it should be, and that's before God. So I think there's a biblical pattern to that. And then for that leader, it's always beneficial for them to step back from public ministry for a period of time, and typically we recommend and decide, because none of this is theory, unfortunately.
So in some cases, rupture is repaired.
Yes, praise God. Yes.
Okay. Successfully.
Yeah.
Or
that's not to say it's not painful. It's still painful, because healing always hurts. Healing always hurts, and you used a very apt analogy of a rupture. That's a cataclysmic breakdown in our bodies and in fellowship and stuff. And that has to be, there's a process of restoration and healing. That's not a quick fix. You can't just whack some super glue on there and carry on. You can't pretend like nothing's happened and just business as usual.
Yeah, I think it also takes, like you said, the awareness of the sin and what it's. My experience is very limited, theoretical. I've read, and I've also been actually a child in a marriage that was breaking because my parents didn't want me to come from a broken home. So women are so scared of breaking up a home and having children coming from a broken home that you're actually constantly in a breaking home where there's just constant conflict and chaos, which is more damaging than just calling it quits. And I'd rather have a healthy version of two different parents than have unhealthy parents in the same household with brewing resentment.
I agree with you 100%.
But then it would have to take both parties realizing what you're talking about with what David did in acknowledging that he sinned against you. The sin is against God first and foremost. And I love what you said about the reconciliation with the loved ones and with other loved ones, because everyone is affected by something like this, by a breaking of a marriage. But there's something you always say, that nobody gets married to get divorced. And but unless you're marrying rich. That's a different audience. And that
I mean, we all have good intentions when we get married. We're just ignorant, we're arrogant, and those things need to be addressed and acknowledged along the way. But I agree with you. There are, and I remember a friend of mine saying, we were actually talking about it recently, and he mentioned the fact that his parents did not divorce, but he wished they actually had, because they just fought each other tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And, they're good people and they actually loved each other, but they just could not get past their bickering and their scrapping and their fighting. And so he said, my parents stayed together, but man, it would have been more peaceful, if they had actually divorced. So there are mitigating circumstances. There are times when divorce, let's be honest, well, I hope I'm always honest, but divorce is, I hate it when people say to be honest, because I think, like, what have you been doing, lying to me up until now? But, I hate that. Divorce can be the best of a couple bad options. It's not first prize in an ideal world, but in some cases, it's the best of a bad lot of options, and it should be taken with, with careful consideration and attention to the details and careful planning and acknowledging what it means for. But I've seen couples too. I've seen couples that they're divorced, but they live in each other's pockets. They get on like a house on fire. I know a couple situations like that, and they become best friends. It's crazy, but I'm glad if they can still be friends. It's wonderful. It's good for the kids. It's good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. The wife eventually, like, her story's in full. She went and she burnt the house, and then she would attack the mistress, and but then at some point in the story they realized that the person they should be attacking is the husband. So it was actually so it was nice seeing that little unity sort of play out, and have them realize that the enemy is not them, because they fight themselves, and then they fight the other woman, and then they realize that actually the person we should be fighting is this man that's brought so much discord and that's lied so much. And what I see also in the story is that narcissistic cycle, where this man starts off by the worst not the worst, actually one of the best I've seen, love bombing, just really going all out and like throwing money at them and promising them the world, and they just like really eat it up. And then he starts with the slight little criticisms, like after the wife gives birth, and then she just gave birth, because somebody just exited. No. See, the best thing that could happen to a person is lacking self-awareness. There is no one in life as happy as people who are not self-aware.
Absolutely, it's bliss, man.
It's bliss for them, because they can't acknowledge when they're wrong, and so it's always somebody else's fault. They're always a victim of they're perpetual victims. They've just worked so hard at trying to do so much for everyone else that everybody else lacks appreciation, which is what I actually see.
Not appreciated, not understood. The whole trip.
Not understood at all.
The violins playing in the background. Cue the melodramatic music. I'm misunderstood. Nobody appreciates me. I'm such a victim. I've done so much for so many people, and this is the thanks I get.
This is the thanks I get. This is the thanks I get.
That's a classic.
Oh my gosh. It's almost like they all just like read from the same script. This is the
it's like we've heard this before somewhere.
Always just like take a grandstand on everything. The next point I wanted to make was the 80-20. I'm 100%. In myself,
absolutely,
I'm 100%.
You're 100% you are a wonderful person. Amazing.
So then a woman is 100%. No one can fully meet 100% of your needs.
Never. No.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say that's why we have God, because now I'm making God sound secondary.
That's when we should realize that we need God.
We should have realized before. But then the minute we realize that...
But
Yeah. Along the way, you think people can meet 100% of your needs, but they can't. And then you like you married or you have a partner, and then they meet 80%. I mean, like 80 is a lot. It could be 50.
That's a distinction, and then some.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Exactly. It's a lot.
Really?
And yes, and then you have the 20%, which could be maybe you just need to be a little bit more involved at the church, and maybe you need to fulfill your other needs differently, like with friends, because some people just like think that their spouse is meant to be their everything. Yes. They cut off friends, and they don't really like get involved in the church. It just becomes, it's their whole world as the spouse, and it revolves around them, and and then your world becomes way too small.
Actually. Whoa, very unhealthy.
Yeah. I mean, your world becomes so small because you don't have things that are independent of each other, and God forbid, like something happens to the spouse.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. And like your world is gone. Anyway, but then people will look for a 20% in the extracurricular activities.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And we do that as Christians as well.
And you know what? The 20% is easy to find because you're aiming pretty low. It's not like it's hard. You're looking for a 20%er, you know.
Exactly. And not to say a person is 20%.
In real life terms, you're moving from the A class in my school to the classroom I was in, which was E. A, B, C, D, E. I mean, you know, it's easy to find those people. They're everywhere.